Hello everyone and welcome to the EVN Disrupt podcast. My name is Nejda Zaturyan. I'm the editor of the creative tech section here at EVN Report. This week we are continuing our series of podcasts from the Science and Technology Convergence Conference. We were happy to be the media partner of the STC conference, which was organized by SmartGate's Catalyst Foundation, with the support of the European Union and the GIZ Foundation. Our guests this week are the co-founders of a Danish space tech company called SpaceTech denMACH. The CEO, Sheila Christiansen, and the CTO, Alexandru Csete, share with us how they are building at the intersection of IoT and space tech, specifically satellite communications, and solving real-world problems in logistics, smart agriculture, and education. Thank you for listening. Thank you both so much for being with us today. So you guys are a company that's in a couple of different spaces, I think it's fair to say. Some of the stuff you guys do is involved in space, as the name of the company suggests. Tell us, what was it about space and how young were you guys when you first sparked your curiosity and excitement about space first?
Well, first of all, everything we do is in space because no matter which application we're involved in, we're transferring the data through our satellites in space.
Right, okay.
But my space interest started actually when I was really young. I was 3 or 4 years old, and my parents read books to me. And I believe it was my grandfather. He read me a book about the first people on the moon. And I asked questions because it didn't look like home in the pictures. I said, where are they at? What are they doing? And they were in the middle of the air with these bubbly suits, and I could see they weren't like being pulled to the ground. I asked, why are they flying? And they said, they're not flying. There's a lack of gravity there. There's less gravity. So when you take a step, you kind of fly. It's called being weightless. Right. And to me, I was just like, oh my goodness, being weightless must be the coolest thing in the world, right? So to me, it started with the dream of going to the moon when I was like 3 or 4 years old. Now I'm 41. So it's been a long journey. I actually was the first... Denmark has never had a female astronaut, so I became an astronaut candidate for Denmark last year, but I didn't make it past the second round. That's okay. I'm still going. Yeah. I'm still going. It's just their opinion. But so I did get to do the 0G flight.
Oh, you did do the flight?
Yes. Awesome. I got to be weightless. Yeah. I did 2 moon gravitational flights, and I did 1 Mars gravity, and then I did 13 zero gravity.
Yeah. I have to do that one day. I know it costs so much money, but I have to do it one day.
Do it instead of convince your when you get married, let's not have a wedding. Let's just go 0G.
That's such a good idea. I'm completely on board.
Public
wedding and 0G. We'll take a minister up with us. Alex, let's get your story.
Yeah, well, for me, unlike for most other space enthusiasts, the interest started much later. I think I was around 15 or so. And I think that's simply because I was born in Romania and wasn't exposed to the possibilities that space offers. Yeah. It was first when I moved to Denmark at the age of 15, I saw it through space communications, satellite communications. Yeah, that interest fostered an education which was somehow related in science and physics.
What did you study?
I studied physics. Okay. Real or academical physics, but I couldn't get a job, or it wasn't interesting to work as a physicist for me. So I worked in engineering, in the space industry, on and off, space industry and satellite communication. That part was kind of ongoing through my whole life. And when I met Sheila in 2018, that's also how we met.
Yeah. We were building rockets.
We were building rockets, in our spare time.
Like as a hobby.
Like model rockets or?
No, real rockets, suborbital rockets for crewed rockets. For a human.
For what?
Copenhagen suborbitals.
Oh, wow. What were the mission purposes?
To make a human go into a suborbital flight and for him to come safely back to Earth and tell us what it was like.
Was it a private industry?
No, it was crowdfunded. It was a hobby.
Oh, wow.
Amateur rocket.
So and we won world first rockets. And only amateur rocket club with ambitions to send a human into space.
And with success, I mean, we have a full flight path success story of all of our systems on the last rocket. Mm-hmm. So I was on the capsule team, and I was live stream host, and then I was capsule lead, where Alex, he was on the communications.
And did you guys ever launch people with the rocket?
Not yet.
It's in the plans.
We've launched 7 rockets so far.
Wow, incredible. Okay. All right. Seems like we could talk about these things with you guys for hours. But
I just wanted to mention that I think it's really interesting because now we're in Armenia, and I thought it was interesting to talk about the fact that Alex's interest in space didn't come till later because he was in an environment where space was so out of reach. And I think that's a huge handicap that a lot of us assume, even as children, or like if you tell your parents and you're 10 years old, I want to be a space engineer. Many parents might say, because they want their children to have success, they might say, why don't you become a doctor or something, you know, something more normal.
Right.
So I think part of the mistake we make is assuming that it's out of reach.
Right.
You have to dream big, right? And so what happened with Alex was he came to Denmark and he became a member of a radio club where he became really good at understanding frequency and radio frequencies. And this you can do as early as 15, I think. You can become a member of a ham radio club. And the way we communicate with ham radio is the exact same way you communicate with a spacecraft.
With rockets.
So if you, as a 15-year-old, can communicate with other people around the planet, you can also communicate with a satellite. Yeah. This is a skill set that a lot of people don't understand, that these old radio clubs can provide you with space engineering skills. Yeah. You know?
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, through these conversations, we constantly see that there are skill sets and education paths that we think of as are intended for completely other things, but they're so applicable in other areas. Like it could be, you know, non-traditional ways of getting to biotech, and now this is a way you were saying of getting into rocketry and aerospace, maybe.
Also, music engineers, they work with wavelengths all the time in different layers and signal. They treat the signal. They have filters, just like we have filters on our, you know. So music engineers could be great space engineers also. I mean,
okay, very cool.
Let's mix it up. Yeah, just like StarMist, right?
Yeah,
music and science together.
So speaking of StarMist, let's first mention that. So your company is SpaceTech denMACH, and you guys are based in Denmark. That's right. So your first trip to Armenia was a few weeks ago at StarMist, and now you guys have come back for the Science and Technology Convergence Conference. Tell us a little bit about what your first initial thoughts on both Armenia and the Armenian scientific and tech ecosystems are. How has your experience been so far?
I love rich cultures. Come on, I wanted to go to the moon and explore the moon. So coming to Armenia, one of the oldest Christian countries on the planet, was an exciting event for me. Arriving at night and then being in the taxi, listening to the local music, looking at your beautiful language on your writing. It looks like wavelengths.
It's the scientist brain.
Yeah, I think your letters are so pretty. So that was the cultural bit, and then I was amazed at the openness and that I feel so welcome here. Yeah. And the food is so delicious and everything. And then I was shocked that you have so many resources. Because you might stereotype a Middle Eastern country like desert, but you have water just for free, just trickling down the mountain, right? And you have sun all day long, so you have renewable energy source. You have wind every night almost. Right. I mean, it's almost like a constant. So to me, it's a land of a lot of rich possibilities. Your people are great. Your resources are great. So I think that, and then you have the skill set that you're awesome at the digital things. You may not have a launch pad, you may not have rockets and stuff, but you're great at what you do. Right. And I think we need to take that and kind of like slide it into some space infrastructure so that we can help monitor all these resources and actually tap into what Armenia has to offer. Mm-hmm. So that to me is very evident here at this conference, that there's a big motivation, and that you can't purchase. You can't learn it in school. You can't purchase it in a store. Right. You either have it or you don't. Right. So I think, I'm getting goosebumps because I think like it's exciting time for Armenia, I think, right now.
Well, it's always interesting to hear that perspective from someone coming from outside, because often our narratives that we say are much maybe sometimes more grim and not as hopeful as hearing it from you guys. But that's a really interesting perspective to hear. Did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I was surprised. So I try when I come to a new country not to have any expectations or anything, because then you just experience it as it is. And I don't know if it's because I was born in Romania that I have also culture closer, but I was surprised how similar it is. It is different and it is very unique, but you get so quickly used to it. Like you mentioned, the people are friendly. We feel welcome. We feel safe. Now we are here the second time. We know how to order a taxi and everything, how to
pay the restaurant. Locals now.
Becoming locals.
The only thing
I'm going to eat a charep tonight. Okay?
Yeah, the only thing we're missing, we need to learn the language. But other than that, feels like a second home already after the second time. So awesome. I was really surprised that a country so far away compared to other countries in Europe, it's so similar in many ways.
Glad to hear that.
You guys are so nice. You're so open and friendly, and
I'm glad you guys have had such a good experience so far in Armenia.
But wouldn't it be great if we could get your tomatoes in Denmark? Because your tomatoes are so delicious.
Find a way to export them.
If I put some data on it,
exactly.
You can grow more and then you can export them to me. No.
So let's talk about your company, SpaceTech denMACH. Tell us what you guys do.
We deliver turnkey solutions for our customers with the satellite communication modem that collects data on things. So basically, if you want to wrap it up short, we do SATCOM IoT.
Okay.
But that sounds like a lot of buzzwords, right? So basically, many industries have areas, or not many industries, I would say all industries have some area where if you collected some data on how they run their business and how they collect their revenue. So, for example, you're a farmer. You have to, let's talk about tomatoes. You have to grow a lot of tomatoes to pay your bills every month, right? But of course, if you could monitor the soil, the moisture in the soil, and you know exactly when the tomato plants want water, you can make the tomato plant grow 30% more tomatoes.
Right.
But if you're just watering it every day, regular basis, fertilizing all the plants the same, no matter where in the field they are, you're not going to get that many tomatoes. That's how we traditionally farm around the world. But with smart farming, we see a 30% growth in harvest. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's just farming. Then you can say construction sites. Hiring 12 electricians to install wires around the building. They arrive on Monday, but the wires, they didn't get there till Friday. Okay. If you spend now a ton of money and people's time, human resources are the most expensive resources. Right. If you had known that the wires weren't going to be there till Friday, you could have adjusted your business, right? The same thing if you're monitoring caviar or corona vaccines or body parts or fine art, the very expensive goods, like a liver is a very costly good.
Yeah.
You want to, if you're transporting it, be monitoring it. These type of things are before these very costly goods like caviar and body parts. It was worth monitoring, right? But it was very expensive. So you have to weigh up how expensive is the good compared to how expensive is it to monitor it.
Right.
So if you've decided, well, I'm shipping 200,000 corona vaccine containers around the planet, to monitor each and every one would cost, I'm just making something up, $1 million, right?
Okay.
But each container is only worth $100,000 worth of corona vaccines. So at what point does it make sense to start monitoring them, right? But now we can deliver with our device. It collects temperature, light, vibrations, whatever you want to monitor, CO2 flux in the Amazon or whatever you want to monitor, forest fires.
Yeah.
And it will collect the data and send it to the satellite, and you can have the data on your computer within 15 minutes.
Yeah.
That means now you can activate the airport and say, look, there's a plane landing with some corona vaccines. When the plane lands, you need to put that vaccines in the freezer right away because it will spoil if you don't, right? But you don't want to pay to put it in the freezer if it doesn't need to go.
Right.
Because that's also a waste of energy and CO2 and money and time and everything.
So it's more data-driven decision-making. Yeah.
So our devices, they basically collect data for any application you want. We can change the sensors on there. We can customize the cabinet, meaning it needed to be waterproof. If you want it to go on a rocket, it needs to be able to tolerate some vibrations. We're talking, hoping that we can get our technology on the moon, So we have different applications, like the educational device. It doesn't need to, the sensors on our educational device doesn't need to be very precise.
Yeah.
Because to teach children about IoT, we don't need to know the exact temperature. We just need to change of something, right?
Before we get to the educational device, tell us a little bit about so the sensor is your main product, is my understanding. And you guys...
No. So that's not true.
Okay.
The sensors is just something that we purchase from people that produce sensors.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not a specialties. Our specialty is space radio frequency.
Got it.
So
we are using the sensors to send the data to your SATCOMs, and
we use the sensors to collect the data.
Right.
And then the data is sometimes processed on board our device with a processor, but we can also send the raw data. So depending on the customer, like if you need quick decisions, you want processed data, maybe, like forest fire monitoring. But if you're trying to see what can I change in my business to make these freezers last longer,
Right.
then you want the raw data so that
Right.
you can make your own trend lines. So we use the sensors to collect the data. The data is then either processed or sent raw to the satellites. The satellites send it back down to the ground station.
Yeah.
And from there, it's dispersed to the users.
And they make decisions using that data.
Yeah.
What are some of the primary verticals you guys are in?
So that's a business word. I'm not, I mean, people use it all the time. Vertical,
Yeah.
you mean?
I just learned them recently. So we have education, logistics, shipping and logistics, and smart agriculture. We're also looking into the energy sector.
Oh, what markets we're in?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So these are the four main verticals.
Can you speak a little bit about agriculture? Because that's something that's a big part of Armenia's economy. Curious, what is it that you guys do for smart agriculture?
Well, we do crop monitoring. It could be, there's so many applications in smart farming. It could be anything also that you don't think is smart farming, like the solar panels.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So when is there dust on the solar panels? When do you need to clean off the dust? It could be a weather application, monitoring the rainfall and the gases coming off the field. Maybe they want to monitor that. It could be monitoring moisture, the fertilizer. It could also be drones equipped with some monitoring. It could be the greenhouses that have some monitoring. And all of this can be collected and sent to our device.
Yeah.
And either, again, processed on the device for the ease of the farmer. But sometimes maybe if it's a big farm, like some in places in South America, you see huge farms. Like, they're quite tech savvy, and they might want that data themselves so that they can optimize their business. They want the raw data.
Yeah. Do you guys build some of the software as well to do that processing? Or?
We build all the software. Well, I'll let the CTO answer.
Yeah, so as Sheila mentioned in the beginning, we try to deliver turnkey solutions that are easy to use or basically plug and play.
Yeah.
So therefore, and in addition to the hardware, we do write a lot of software to make it work intelligently.
And is it specific for those markets, the software?
There's a lot of common core technology, both in terms of hardware and software, mostly software. But some parts of it has to be customized to make it, because if you make everything generic, then it will be equally bad for everybody.
Yes.
If you try to optimize it to some degree, then it will be optimal for those use cases.
Right. Yeah.
And one thing I'd like to add to what these verticals, it's because it's not quite agriculture, but environmental monitoring that we'd like to do, even though it's not the killer business case.
Yes,
like methane detection, things like that. Or?
So we have the Amazon rainforest actually as an end user.
Wow.
Yeah, we have the Brazilian government.
Incredible.
So we went there for a state visit, met their Minister of Science, Technology and Innovation. Brazil produces 12% of the world's produce.
Really? I didn't know that.
They have a lot of raw resources, but they also have some crisis management. They have a lot of dams. So Brazil has been 80% renewable energy since the 80s.
Okay.
I mean, they're amazing because they have all of these dams.
Yeah.
But the dams sometimes break. And then they flood the nearby areas, of course. And in the poorer villages, a lot of people die.
Yeah.
So they want monitoring on the dams, like tension monitoring.
Yeah.
And they want to be able to alert the public the dam is breaking, evacuate, right? So that's one crisis management they also want to, I think Brazil is in a lot of heat all the time about what they're doing with the rainforest, because the whole planet feels it's their responsibility to monitor the rainforest because it's our most precious rainforest, right?
Yes. Yeah.
But so Brazil wants to monitor it better, but they want to also help the poor villages, some of the indigenous people that live in the Amazon that don't even know, for example, people with my skin color exists. They didn't even know Corona happened. This is part of the world where
it's really isolated community.
Yeah, they're so isolated, and even they don't feel they belong to a government of Brazil. To them, that's their forest, and if they want to cut down the trees to be able to feed their children and sell the wood to the West. So apparently a lot of countries around the world, they illegally deforest the Amazon forest. So the government says we cannot deny these people to feed their children.
Right.
They have no respect for our laws. They don't even live in the society where they have laws, But so they want to be able to give off some pieces of the land, for example, and monitor.
Right.
So that they can keep them responsible. So they want monitoring on trucks, tractors, like forestry machines, so that when something is being deforested illegally,
right,
they can keep them responsible. right? And they can get out there quick and they get the message fast enough. They also want to track ocean trash. Brazil has a huge coastal line. They have now opened up for offshore wind farming. It was not legal before, but now it's legal. So they also are interested in our devices to monitor the windmills. Yeah, because to monitor an ocean windmill, you have to use a sail out, fly with a drone, listen to the engine. But we can do that with our device, and then they can just stay at their computers and get the data.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of applications
It
just
sounds
in
like
Brazil.
The general theme of what you guys are saying is, as the advent of IoT devices becomes more and more spread out throughout society, and there's more and more adoption of IoT devices, our data collection capabilities are going to drastically increase, and we're going to be able to make better data-driven decisions. What are some of the most impactful areas that we can expect to see in the next, let's say, decade of how these IoT devices will enable us to have better decision-making capabilities?
Well, see, in Europe right now, you see a lot of smart buildings.
Okay.
It's that's where you see the biggest, because most people live in cities, so that's where you'll see it first.
Explain what a smart building is.
A smart building is a building that, for example, when the sun is on the east side of the building will turn off the lights on the east side of the building. It will,
oh wow,
it will turn them up higher on the side where it's dark. It will monitor the air quality inside. So it will also open windows to let out CO2 when the CO2 level becomes too high in the building. It will monitor your water meters. It will monitor your trash, so that right now in the shopping mall, you have people emptying the trash every Tuesday, every Wednesday at 8 in the morning, and then again at 1 p.m. You know, the trash bag might be only a little bit full, but the person is going to go by and empty the trash regardless if it's full or not.
Right.
A smart building would have a meter in the trash saying, now you empty it.
Right.
If all buildings only had trash and maintenance when they needed it, when they were asking for it, you would have 30% less cars in the city. Those 30% people that would normally be driving those trucks, they're now doing something else, producing more revenue for your country. Yeah. So that's the first place that you see stadiums, like big buildings where people have invested in making them smart.
Yeah.
Because you save a ton of money by making them smart, right? And in fact, in Denmark now, we have such high climate goals. You are not allowed to build a building unless it's smart.
Really?
Yeah, it's like a law.
Impressive.
So, but I think the biggest impacts are not in cities, because only 5% of our planet is a city, right? Most of our planet is far away from a city.
Right.
I think our biggest impacts will be like in smart agriculture and shipping and logistics. That's where we spend a ton of diesel and energy and time to ship goods around the world, and we lose 30% of our goods. Did you know that?
What do you mean by lose 30% of our goods?
Because we can't monitor them. They go to waste.
Oh, the yield is just not high. Yeah.
Oh, and 30% of the planet has no food.
Right. So there's the 30%.
That's a kind of a interesting
right.
Study, I think, that maybe we can actually not have a food crisis on our planet if we just knew how to monitor them better and transport them better.
And be much more efficient.
Yeah.
Yeah. It also
I have a good example to what you just mentioned, because when you say food lost, it can be many things: stolen, just disappearing. I think it was in Brazil, somebody described the problem to us that it can be like when things are transported by trucks and the roads are bad, some of it just simply falls off during transport.
Right.
But if you also monitor the
condition
actual transport, you know that now the car is shaking a lot, and you learn the routes and also find more efficient routes. Then that's one of and it's things like that we don't really think about unless we talk to the end users and understand their problems.
This has been super insightful, because till now I was largely thinking of IoT devices as like, thermostats in your house and maybe like a smart camera or something.
Exactly. Smart cities.
But it's actually far more about just getting the data to be able to make better decisions.
We have these glasses the farmer puts on, not we, but they exist in the industry. They just put on some glasses, and then when they're driving their tractor, they can see through the glass, the satellite data. They can just drive in their tractors and put on these glasses, and they can just see through the glasses where the field needs water. Yeah. And they get the data integrated into a screen so they can monitor it with just the glasses. Because we can't expect farmers to be space engineers. Right,
obviously.
So, so a lot of these applications, also the same with the shipping industry. The people that work in the shipping industry are typically not, astrophysicists or they're more, harbor workers or something. And they just need things to work. So this industry is really hungry for digitalization. And this industry is probably one of the world's biggest industries, right?
Yeah. It sounds like there can also be a lot of impact on climate change. So if things like
forest fire monitoring,
forest fires or methane
passions.
detection and things like that, like
monitoring dolphins in the sea.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How far is this polar bear going to travel to eat today compared to last year?
Right. Yeah.
Whereas, like there's sensors for the rhinoceros that you put in the nose.
Mm-hmm.
Now you can monitor who's poaching them.
Poaching the horns.
So there are so many
applications.
Use cases, that aren't huge. Even if just like you're skiing and you get lost in the mountain.
Yeah.
You know?
How do you guys think about some of the privacy implications for having a lot more sensors and IoT devices and data collection?
No problem at all, because these are data on things. So we're not collecting data on humans, right? It's a whole different protocol, a whole different network. We're not even on the same network. I think that the data the data will be extremely valuable. And I think that we'll see in 20 years, 10 years time that we have data sets that tell us exactly the best way to do everything. And that data will be worth a ton of money. Right. So I think you'll start to see data companies booming, data acquisition.
We're already seeing it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that will become more of a thing. The more data we collect on things, like if I know which hinges to put on the container ship, which hinges last the longest in salt water, and you are a shipping company, you would pay a lot of money for that data.
Yeah. It's just like hyper optimizing everything, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So let's get to this device on the table. For our listeners listening, there's a little model rover that's a part of some of the educational initiatives that you guys have. Tell us about this and what it is that you guys do.
Well, that's a Lego robot.
Okay.
And it's actually the European Space Agency that told us we could really use in Europe an educational material where we could teach SATCOM to children. And on top of that, we could teach
Explain
IoT.
what SATCOM is for our listeners who might not know.
So we have telecom is telecommunications and SATCOM is satellite communications.
Okay.
So it's almost the same thing, except when you send a signal into space, you have to treat it a little bit different because it gets perturbed on the way, and there's radiation and there's Doppler and there's all this stuff. But so we wanted to take that on and use our device and integrate it with a Lego robot so that now children can build Lego robots and program not just a Lego robot where it's going and how it's driving, but also collect data from our SATCOM device, because they can now, in the same software, get access to our satellite communication modem. And they can control it and decide what data do they want to collect. And then they can also decide when it sends it, whether it's going to process it on board or not. And then they can sit in their classrooms down to like 5th, 6th grade and get the data down on some Excel sheets and learn how to analyze the data.
Work with the data.
And then also talk about why didn't we get these other packets that we were supposed to get from the satellite yesterday?
Yeah.
What happened? Maybe there was a tree in the way. We could also teach them how to like pointing exercises with the antenna to hunt for the satellite.
Yeah.
Because we do that satellite hunting, right? It's fun.
Right.
So I think children, they love space, they love Lego. So this was an easy way for them to get excited about engineering. And all teachers know how to build Lego. So we thought this is also easy for teachers to get involved with.
Very cool.
And then we have, we are flying it to the International Space Station.
Incredible.
In August next year. So we're handing it off to NASA in February. They want it 6 months before launch. Safety issues, I guess. But we're going through all kinds of validations right now with NASA, ESA, because they want to make sure it doesn't blow up or burn on the rocket or on the space station, and that it doesn't hit an astronaut in the head while And then we have invited all schools in our entire kingdom, that means Denmark, Greenland, and Faroe Islands, to write a program, one program for each school, where they can collect data from the space station. They can choose what data they want to collect. What
are some examples of the types of data they can
Well, maybe
collect?
they want to investigate some 0G, some momentum studies, like physics, pure physics. Maybe you want to build the same robot on the ground and have the robots do the same exercise and compare the differences, right? Maybe you could use the accelerometer for that. Maybe you want to collect data on how busy is the European space module, on a Tuesday compared to a Sunday. What is the indoor quality like of living on the space station? Are they thriving or just surviving? What's the temperature like? Things like that. How are maybe the sleep patterns or something? Well, sleep pattern is not going to be a thing because we found out we have to tether our device they didn't approve the battery. The Lego battery has never been to space. So to get that battery approved, we would have to wait 6 months of approvals. So we're risking the launch and the whole mission if we try to get that battery approved. So we've decided to just use the power supply from the space station to power our device. And with that, we're now enabling our whole kingdom to get the data down and do the data analysis. And
what age kids are they?
From like 5th, 6th grade and up, depending on how motivated the children are. Sometimes you see children in 3rd, 2nd grade. My son was programming in this language when he was in 1st grade.
Wow. Incredible.
So he was building me robots. He said, "Mom, I made you a sandwich machine." So a machine that could make sandwiches. And the kids love building robots. You know?
Do you guys have any plans to get this outside of Denmark as well and make it accessible to schools around the world?
NASA has asked us what we want to do with it when it's done, when we're done with our mission. Our mission is from August 2023 to February 2024.
Okay.
We have 3 options. So one option is for it to stay in the space station so that other countries can benefit from it also. That's my first wish. But to make that happen, I have to document the desire, the need, the societal need. If the planet says to NASA and ESA, we need this, we want our children to do this too, and society needs it, then they will let it stay.
Okay.
But if I don't collect that documentation, then I have 2 other options. The second option is my second wish is to get it downloaded to Earth, meaning put into a capsule, a Crew Dragon capsule, back onto to the planet. Right? Then we can, that would just be for fun. I don't think there's a lot of societal benefit from it coming back to Earth, except for some PR and some excitement in schools and things like that. But the third, if none of those things can happen, I can't document the need for any of those purposes, then they will trash it in space, meaning they'll just open up and let it fly.
Just float.
Yeah.
So it sounds like in order to keep the mission alive and not have it float endlessly in space, countries like Armenia, even if they have interest, they should express that interest through maybe like a letter of support or something.
Yes, please send it off to our email address.
Okay.
Here on my business card.
I'll try to get that information to the right
Definitely.
people.
I've also spoken to some other people here that also like the American University of Armenia.
Yeah.
So there's other entities here that have an interest. So if you need me to help you point those people out, if you want to make a collective with signatures sent to your government and say, look, we are a lot of institutions, universities, nonprofits that believe we need to do this.
And the government probably through the ministry or something.
Yeah.
Okay. Fantastic.
And if you have friends in other countries,
yes,
please spread the word.
Yeah. I'm from Canada, so I'll tell the Canadians to
do it. Especially since Canada is a European Space Agency member. So that will be a lot. So of course, ESA, if they get letters from the ESA member states, they will be of more importance than
non-member states,
like Kenya or something. But we do also have an interest from Kenya, and we have interest from Brazil.
Fantastic.
So interest from Armenia would be great to add on to that.
Yeah. Okay, we'll try to work on that. Thank you guys both so much for joining us. This was really fascinating. I learned a lot from it. I've been saying that throughout these past 2 days at this conference. I just keep saying I've learned so much from this conversation.
It's great to be an interviewer.
Yeah. I hope you guys. Yes, it is. It's a great tool for both learning and just meeting a lot of new people. So I hope you guys will come back to Armenia at some point, and we'll be able to continue the conversation.
Exactly. And
Thank
if you're
you guys
in Denmark,
so much.
Thank you.
Yes,
look us up. Right?
For sure. Thank you guys so much.